Alright, guys. So previously we were looking at this question to do with why young people shouldn't be allowed to drive until they reach 24, given the statistics of how most crashes happen with drivers who are at that age. Hopefully, guys, that question has made sense. Now, guys, we're going to move on to the next question, question 26 of the same paper. This is migratory birds which are unable to fly long distances without resting have to use a shorter distance over water in their flights to and from Africa. And so they cross at the Straits of Gibraltar. It is essential for these birds, some of which are very rare, that the route remains open. For that reason, it's important that the plans to build electricity generating wind farms on the hills surrounding the Straits of Gibraltar do not go ahead. Which of the following is an assumption of the on which the argument depends? So, guys, pause the video. Just give yourself over a minute. Be sure to be back after that, where we're then going to go through the solution. All right, guys. So welcome back. So let's go through this. So. Migratory birds which are unable to fly along distances without resting have to use a short distance over water in their flights to and from Africa. And so they cross at the Straits of Gibraltar. That is explaining the current situation of what birds have to do to go from place A to B, isn't it? So that's all just going to be fact. We can line that out as fact. So let's cross all of this out. Then it says it is essential for these birds, some of which are very rare, that the route remains open. So this might be an opinion. I mean, as we're going to see, there's an even stronger opinion here. That's why I'm just going to rule this one out. And then it says, for that reason, it is important that plans to build electricity generating wind farms on the hills surrounding the streets of Britain do not go ahead. So that's clearly very demanding language. You should do this. You must do this. So this is going to be your conclusion. And also it gives you like the structure. Remember, this is of the structure where it gives you a bunch of reasons, and then it says therefore, or in this case, for that reason, then the conclusion in this case. So the conclusion is that electricity generating wind farms shouldn't be built in the hills surrounding the Straits of Gibraltar. And some of the reasons is because it will disrupt the. Some of the reasons is that basically birds need that route essentially. Okay, so let's go through the options. The birds that migrate across the Straits of Gibraltar are close to extinction, so we're not really concerned about if that's just a completely random statement. It doesn't really link. Remember, guys, for it to even be considered, it has to link in some way with the conclusion and some of the reasons backing that. So it's not this one. Electricity generating wind will have to be built on hills. Again, this is quite random, doesn't really link in with what's been said. If you go to C, the planned wind farms will make it dangerous for migratory birds to use this route. I like this option. So if you look at the conclusion, guys, it is that building these electricity generated wind farms on the hills surrounding the Straits of Gibraltar, they shouldn't go ahead. And the reason is because some birds, which are very rare, use this route, but then the link between that is you're assuming that building these wind farms is going to make it dangerous so that they can't use this route. This is why this is a really good option. So that's why I really like C. Other species of bird can fly further and can thus use other routes in their migration. We're not really concerned about other species of bird, isn't it? So that's why we can't use this one. There are no plans to build wind farms at other places along the coast. We're not really bothered about other places along the coast. We're just bothered about this place in the hills surrounding the straits. So it can't also be this one. Therefore, guys, this is why I believe C in this case is going to be the correct answer. So hopefully, guys, that's made sense. And as always, comment down below if you have any questions. And as always, we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Alright, guys, so welcome back. So previously we were looking at this question, which we're talking about plans to build wind farms in an area where birds use as a migration route. Hopefully, guys, that has made sense. And let's now go on to the next question, which is question 38 of the same paper. It says, many countries spend billions on vaccines in response to advice that a virus had the potential to kill millions. These countries are now trying to sell the stockpiles of vaccine which they do not need. There's concern that advice given by officials may have been influenced by pharmaceutical companies. Clearly, such companies would have an interest in making sure that governments spend large quantities of money on vaccines that they produce. It is essential that an investigation into this matter takes place as soon as possible so that those responsible can be held account. Which of the following is an assumption on which this argument depends? So guys, pause the video, give yourself just over a minute. Be sure to be back after that, where we're then going to go through the solutions. Alright, guys, so let's go through this. So many countries spend billions on vaccines in response to advice that a virus has the potential to kill millions. That's clearly just fact. So we can just cross this out. Then it says these countries are now trying to sell the stockpiles of vaccines which they do not need. Again, that's just fact. So we can easily cross this out. There's concern that advice given by officials may have been influenced by pharmaceutical companies. Again, other people's opinion, but it's going to be fact because it's an observation in this case. So we can just cross this out. then clearly such companies would have an interest in making sure that governments spend large quantities of money on vaccines that they produce. This is going to be fact, isn't it? So we can cross this out. And this is essential that an investigation into this matter takes place as soon as possible so that those responsible can be held to account. Again, this is clearly being demanding. You must do this. You must. We should do this. So this is very demanding language. This can be clearly an indication of a conclusion, and also is occurring towards the end of a passage where before that they were just giving a load of evidence, more or less. So conclusion here is an investigation must take place um, so that those responsible can be held account. And some of the reasons is saying that companies have an interest in making a lot of money from things as vaccines, and therefore they would encourage governments to buy a lot of vaccines. So, which of the following is an assumption? So, the pharmaceutical companies influence the advice given by officials. So, so this one, the reason, so I don't think this one's going to be the answer. Firstly, the reason why I don't think um, this one's going to be the answer is because it's not really talking about officials, and even if officials, if they were influenced, then officials also should technically be held into account for succumbing to that advice. That's why I don't like this one. B, the advice given by officials, the advice given by officials was not appropriate. Yes, I think this one is better. So what you're assuming here is that so here it said those those people who are basically bribing these officials to tell the government to buy more vaccines, they should be held in account. But you're assuming here that they gave wrong advice, and that wrong advice was so that it's helping out these other companies. So this is why I think B is a good option. C, it will not be possible for the stockpiles of vaccine to be sold. Again, we're not really concerned about that. Whether they can be sold or not, the main argument here is to do with the justice of the matter. Like, was it appropriate for them to buy many in the first place? So, whoops, sorry. Let's go back to the question. So that's why it can't be this one. And then D, the pharmaceutical companies misjudged the dangers of the virus. We're not really concerned. That doesn't really link to the conclusion. The conclusion is talking about bringing those people who done the wrong forward and putting them into account. So it can't be this one. Groups with financial interests do not advise officials in other areas of decision making. We're not really concerned again with other areas. We're literally just concerned about this case and the justice surrounding it. So that's why it can't be this one. So hopefully you can understand, guys, that in this case, B is going to be our winner. B is going to be the correct answer. So hopefully, guys, that has made sense. And as always, we look forward to seeing you in the next video.